This is the Almost Daily ZenCast. Hello, and namaste. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I am your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's get started. Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining me today on a Saturday morning. It's April 3rd, 9:24 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I am currently. And it's the end of a very long, exhausting week in which, even if you tried, you couldn't avoid a little bit of news coverage somewhere from, and a little bit of insight into the kind of testimony being shared in the Chauvin. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm terrible at that. We need staff and stuff to check how you correctly pronounce people's names. I mean, no disrespect to anybody when it happens. Also, many people will be not too offended for mispronouncing this guy's name. Needless to say, there's a lot of emotion and pain associated with this moment, this kind of historical event, a big trial of the century. Is this our trial of the century? Maybe. I mean, especially if you can have more than one trial of the century. If you can have a trial of the century every decade, then absolutely, yes, this is our trial of the century right now. And there's a lot of talking heads saying a lot of different things about it from a lot of outlets, and ultimately, I think, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the thing I'd like to focus on, and try to welcome into existence, and that's that, to the best of my ability to understand, to the best of my ability to discern. People are watching, the court of public opinion is watching, and the defense doesn't have a very strong case because the crime was truly egregious and somehow mysteriously perfectly emblematic of an ongoing, system-wide, systemic issue. In as much as that, and of course I've got to be careful what I say, right? As we all should. Not that I'm a word Nazi, by all means, no. I mean, I believe in free speech. But, I also believe in balance, because there is such a thing as taking free speech to a toxic extreme, right? You can take anything and make it too much, and then it's gross. But I digress. The defense, as is being, presented, I don't even have to generally refer to this widely reported sort of level of it. Like, we're watching, the whole world is, half the world, whatever percentage of the world that is watching, 2/3, 1/8, 5/17, 300ths of a, I don't know, what percentage of the world is watching? There's a live feed, right? Two of the big three major primetime 24 hours a day, although not really, cable news channels are directly showing us what's going on. I think that while there's a lot that can be said and a lot of analysis is going on and can be analyzed, I think ultimately the take home, the resounding thing that has happened so far, which I think is everyone's sort of like pleasantly surprised, is that, two different senior ranking police officers from the same force, that one might, as a outside observer, one might presume would fail to testify strongly enough about the egregious nature of Officer Chauvin's chosen set of actions. And while I totally believe and support in the presumed innocent until proven guilty thing, when someone commits a crime live on TV in front of multiple, rolling cameras, and there's no room for doubt that this is the person and they were the ones that committed the questionable offense. We can talk about it at a slightly different level, I think, without being accused of disrespecting anybody's rights. It was really quite astonishing to me, and therefore, at this point in sort of, media history, worth it to me to, if I've already said it before, brought it up on the show before, bring it up again right now. As I have this sort of short-term memory gap, not, I don't think it's problematic, but in the middle of trying to craft the words of what I'm going to say in any given moment, right, like right now, right here, in this episode, as we are in this very moment, I have a tendency to be like, wait, what have I said in the past 433 episodes I've published? I don't know. So forgive me if I've said this before, but I think it was really important that both of the testifying senior officers that I caught, and I did not, I'm the first to tell you, I did not see all of the testimony, right? I am not pretending to be a journalist. I am an opinion talk show, entertainment personality, show host. But both of them seem to testify from the sections of it that I caught while it was on live. It's not like I was watching the talking heads chop it up and regurgitate it back out. It was during the actual course of the testimony. I would just pop in for a bit and then drop out. I'm not good with real life courtroom tension and that slow, prolonged pace that is not punctuated by dramatic bass notes on orchestra instruments. Dun-dun-dun! Or however it goes. You know what I'm talking about for Law and Order? I've been really envious and jealous sidebar, extreme screeching, way out of control, veering off to a tangent. Sidebar. The times that people have referenced and sort of joked around with the that sound effect from that TV show on something recent, something new, and I can't remember what I recently just caught it on, but there was some show or another, and I want to say it might have, I don't know which one, right now, right this hot second, but it's adorable to me, and I'm jealous when they get to play around with it. And somebody did some funny bit recently, some show, it might have been from 3 years ago, I don't know, but I recently watched some show on one of my streaming platforms that I have access to for the purposes of commenting on media on my podcast, and huzzah to them. Jealous. I think it's cute. I wish I had that. It would probably technically be considered a violation of the show's content rights, but I'd love to be able to hit one of these effect buttons and have the dun 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 dun. No, that's Terminator. That one sounded way more like one of the Terminator percussion refrains than the thing I'm talking about from not Night Court. Why do I have the word Night Court? Anyways, spiraling out of control. Let's get it back together. This trial, of course, is monumentally important because, and this should never be minimized, no matter what else might be being made light of or being spoofed or parodied, this should never be minimized. It has been an extremely rare thing in this country, especially in light of the sheer volume of police-involved gun violence, that police officers get brought to justice and convicted for having actually taken people's lives. Now, there is the difficult conversation to be had about, how dangerous the job really is, which it totally can be, and I'm not denying that. And we need to go around and make sure that it's understood that I support the people in the uniform. I just sometimes also see and understand and have experienced my own evidence of the systemic problems that are not a critique of any given individual, right? But of the collective gaps and failings of an institutional system, which is part of a network of a system of systems. This reminds me of a conversation I had, which kind of got a little terse. It was not meant to turn into an argument, per se, and I don't think that it technically did, but we did get a little terse and a little huffy-puffy at each other, and then went, well, let's all calm down. My mother and I used to get into it, and in fact, may she rest in peace, if she were still alive, she would probably have been my first interviewee possible co-host. Because we used to just sit around, sometimes maybe drinking coffee, maybe drinking too much, maybe me drinking way too much coffee and her not stopping me, and her also drinking a little bit too much coffee, and discuss things, right? And debate things and just kind of go, what a weird set of events. What do we think about them, etc., etc. And what conversation was I reminded of? I think it may have been near or around the time of the Rodney King beating. A monumental and sort of historic and landscape changing moment when, thanks to the, at that point, sort of recent normalization and propagation of affordable, what we used to call handy cams, handheld video recording devices that were not yet satellite uplink GPS timestamped fucking supercomputers. They were straight up just miniaturized film cameras. Which, of course, to some people is hilarious, and some people is like, who cares? Oh man, she said something, and I've now totally lost it. I'm so bad at, I should have just quoted her first, and then spiraled out of control. I was just reminded of something that she said, which I thought was pertinent, and now feel like a fool for not remembering, for having lost whatever the fuck I was starting to remember, for having spiraled so much. Regardless, zooming back to the here and now and this current historic moment that we're living through, this week it was a powerful thing. I mean, everyone's testimony has been strong and interesting, and engaging and emotional, and and I can totally understand if for some people even a bit triggering and difficult to watch, right? Or difficult to listen to. But I think that, as has already been pointed out by various other commentators, this is the kind of thing that we, as a collective, as a community, that it's important that we go through it and really listen, right? Especially any and all of us who conceive of ourselves or describe ourselves or choose to believe ourselves to be allies to those who are victims of this systemic problem. Now, sorry for the coffee cup on the table object strike there, but there's so much we could be addressing about it. But the bottom line, the thing I was actually trying to get at, is that to me, I felt it was a historic first. A first in terms of what I've seen. Now, have there been other cases in which this kind of testimony has been brought by police officers? Maybe, and that we're not aware of, that weren't being broadcast on two of the big three mainstream cable news media outlets? Perhaps. Most certainly, given the statistics. It's not entirely impossible. I don't know, and I'm not trying to make statements. I'm not trying to make, statements. But for me, in my casual but engaged observership of interesting news when it breaks, especially in the area of justice and the law and reform and policing and police relations and human rights and civil rights, et cetera, et cetera. This whole, because it isn't just one thing, right? But in observing this whole sort of collection of things, and in watching trials specifically of officers who arguably crossed the line and failed to uphold their oath to protect, right? Those that they are taking into custody, because they really are supposed to protect everybody, not just the wealthiest of the taxpayers at home, safe behind armored, gates and whatnot. But it was really powerful, and I believe, in my opinion, or at least from my perspective, historic, to hear both of these senior police officers who testify basically discredit the defense that the former officer Chauvin was just following institutional training. Both of these officers testified that kneeling on the back of a handcuffed individual, kneeling on the neck, grinding the knee on the neck, putting one's leveraged body weight on a snap point in the spine. Now that's my wording, not theirs, right? But they all basically agreed that that was none of that, especially while handcuffed, is not in compliance or in accordance with standard training, and that it is in fact in violation of. As one officer said, it's totally unnecessary, uncalled for. I don't remember if it was the same officer or the other officer, explained that, quite bluntly, and I would have tried to be more direct, more adamant, and clear. When handcuffed and in a, face down position, your body weight is working against your basic musculature, and it's, even if there's no one on you, just straight up handcuffed or hands tied behind your back, it's harder to breathe. Period. Full stop. Handcuffed and one person's body weight anywhere on your back, and it's even more ridiculously difficult to breathe. And George Floyd had 4 people's body weight on him? And Mr. Chauvin's knee was focusing his entire, because I think his other leg, if I remember from the video and from the still imagery, his other leg was sort of not, like his other knee specifically was either on the ground or not, like, I think he was on his, his other knee was not on anything. I did not have a very eloquent statement there. And also, I don't have the image in front of me, so maybe I should not risk awkward speculation. Either way, it should seem obvious, right? Ask yourself, would you want a 190, 210 pound person's knee and body weight, leveraged body weight focused in their knee on the small of your neck, while your hands and shoulders and your entire upper chest is torqued out of your normal positioning because it's handcuffed? No, of course not. No, you wouldn't. No one would want that except for a masochist who is into self-asphyxiation, right? Like, what the fuck? At any rate, huzzah for that they're beyond the gripping and powerful testimony of the eyewitnesses, that there was police officers and other first responders testifying that this was unacceptable. An unacceptable series of choices. An unacceptable sequence of decisions and course of actions and course corrections, that none of which, from the beginning, mind you, approaching George Floyd in his car with guns drawn over a $20 bill that might have been, hasn't been verified, tested, confirmed as, might have been counterfeit. Right? So, and I want to assert that I stand with everybody and anybody who can see and agree that from the beginning that was unacceptable from moment one, right? And I applaud, by the way, I saw this and I felt very strongly for the young man having to testify in front of people. I applaud him for being so brave as to say that he felt guilty and remorseful, and that, and that he understood that if he had just simply refused to accept that $20 bill, which is the recommended course of action that most businesses will take on and teach, it's sort of the first offense, you get a warning. Oh, sir, you know what? This may be a counterfeit. You may want to take this to the bank, report it, and you may want to see if you can figure out where you picked it up. And if you think you got it from an ATM, go to that branch and be like, hey, I think I got this from your ATM. That is the norm. That's what you're supposed to do. And I'm not talking out of my ass here. I can say that I can assure you with some authority, because I once, a long time ago, in a decade far away from here, I once worked in a bank, and you can imagine, and better yet, you can find out and know for certain that banks are very fastidious. They're very strict, and they're very by the book. You got to follow rules, and they're very detail oriented. And back in the day, in my very brief stint as a bank teller, now this is forever ago, and it was at a bank that no longer exists. Okay, so I hope no one sees me over referencing it, and my recollection is a little vague, a little fuzzy. I'll admit that, but I know that I came across suspicious bills, right? And it wasn't so long ago that those little pens didn't exist. They did. And while I didn't get them every day, counterfeit bills were common enough that, I certainly handled some. And basically, it was a matter of alerting the customer. Dear customer, did you know, this bill may be counterfeit. And if they were trying to, and here's what it comes down to. If they were not a customer, just a stranger off the street, a civilian off the street wanting to break a bill, the default protocol is to say, sorry, I believe this to be counterfeit. You should return to the branch that you withdrew this from and report it. Right? And if they were insistent or whatever, you'd get a manager, and then you would invite them to consider filing a police report here. We'll gladly notify the authorities, and you can wait here and file a police report. And it wasn't antagonistic about, like, let's call the cops, tackle this asshole to the ground, beat him up, and throw him in the slammer for bringing a goofy-looking $20 bill or a $50 bill. Or either way, I remember correctly, it was about de-escalation and about trying to send, especially if they were not a banking customer. If they were a banking customer and they were trying to deposit this or just break it and get change or whatever, it was definitely about finding out, suggesting to them that they contact the police. The larger the bill, the more urgently we invited them to take a seat and that we could arrange for them to talk to the authorities via phone or whatever. And I'm sort of extrapolating, but there was no push the secret buzzer and wait for the cops to show up with AK-47s drawn, right? That's crazy. No. You would turn it over to the police. You would take the loss. If you were a well-intentioned, innocent banking customer, that we would guide you to report it to the cops. If it was under $100, presumably just take the loss and whatever, and go to the person or entity or business or different bank from which you got it in terms of attempting to get it back, get your money compensated. So absolute madness, all caps WTF. I don't know how many question marks and apostrophes, exclamation points, rolling up on this guy, guns drawn. Done. Excessive force. Right there. In my humble opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'm no expert. Please don't sue me. But as you may be gathering, dear friends and listeners, my concern is collective in as much as that, the more we normalize that kind of behavior, if we don't hold that accountable, we allow it to become more normalized. And I, for one, don't think we should be normalizing anybody getting away with brutally killing anybody else with impunity over almost absolutely nothing. Because a suspicious $20 bill that is yet to be confirmed to be a counterfeit $20 bill literally is almost next to nothing, in my humble opinion.
And that is what I've got to say about that. As always, thank you kindly for listening. This has been the Almost Daily ZenCast with your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart.